Harold. Hi, Mario. Where's
Hi,
Tim?
happy birthday.
Hi, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, Magda.
She can't hear you. Oh, she's muted.
Yes, I need this too.
Happy birthday, Susie.
Oh, thank you.
Having a good time over there?
Great. It's beautiful here. Very nice. The weather's
Happy
perfect.
birthday, Susie,
Thank you, Magda. Thank you.
of course.
What happened? We're not here.
We finished with Gidon.
Let me close the door.
Hi, Ernie.
Hi, Sydney.
Hi, Sydney.
Hi, Sid.
Hello, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Me.
Hi, Sydney.
Hi, Sydney. Hi, Tammy. We've been before.
How's winter?
It's good. Okay, so Perik Yud, Pasuk Aleph. So we last week we finished with Avimelech, who met his end in an ignominious way, right? By having his head crushed.
Bye.
So he got his nakama. So Vayakam Achre Avimelech lahoshia et Yisrael. So and the Radak says Shagam Avimelech hoshia et Yisrael. In a way, he was Moshiach. So after Avimelech came Tola ben Pua, ben Dodo, name of a person, Ish Yisachar. V'hu Yoshev b'Shamir Bahar Ephraim. Actually moved to the center of Eretz Yisrael, because Yisachar was more to the north. And he moved into Ephraim, perhaps to be accessible to more Jews who used him as a shofet. Right? The Minchas Ketano says, V'char lasheves b'har Ephraim shayim makom muchan lechochma u'lemadav u'lenevuah. Like it says in Sefer Shmuel, Tzofim mehar Ephraim. Vayishpot et Yisrael esrim v'shalosh shana. He judged for 23 years. Vayamat vayikaber v'shamir.
Don't hear too much about him.
We'll see exactly. This was like, if you remember Shamgar, remember after Otniel ben Klaz, it was
Right.
one pasuk. We'll see what the significance of that is. That there's really one pasuk. But Tola was a very favorable shofet. And then Vayakam Achrav Yair Hagiladi. Vayishpot et Yisrael esrim u'shtayim shana. So you have 45 years in two psukim. And it says, what were the credentials? So we can understand maybe by Tola, who was from Ish Yisachar, we know Yisachar Chamor Gorem, right? He was associated with learning Torah. So we can understand Yisachar. But what is this Yair Agiladi's Yichus? It says, Vayilo Shloshim Banim. He had 30 sons.
Wow.
Rochvim al Shloshim Ayarim. They would ride 30 donkeys, but an Ayar is, Rashi says, Susim Bachurim, very special horses. Ushloshim Ayarim Lahem. They owned 30 cities. So Yair was very wealthy. Lahem Yikru'u Chavot Yair. Ad Hayom Hazeh Asher Be'eretz HaGilad.
Something happened.
It's just the email that comes up when I get an email. They still send me.
It's weird, the Ayorim and Ayorim.
Okay, so if you remember, when Klal Yisrael under Moshe comes into the Eretz Habashan, here also we have Machir ben Menashe, and there was a Yair ben Machir. Yair was the grandson of Menashe, and they were powerful warriors, and they were involved in taking over the lands of Sichon and Og. And he also, it says there in Sefer Bamidbar that he built cities called Chavot Yair. And this is not the same Yair. This is 300 years later.
Right.
But it must be that this Yair sort of hung his root. He hung his fortunes on his yichus. He must have also been a warrior.
Mhm.
He had money. And so I just want to point out that the Radak makes a comment, Gadol ki gadol haya v'nichbad ba'osher uvanim v'chavod. V'kol echad mibanav haya nichbad rochav al ayin aton. He was wealthy. He had a lot of children. And he says, Ve'efshar gam kain. Okay, the Susim were also called Ayarim. So I just want to say, Rabbi Hatton says, we see no other judge was catapulted into leadership based on these kind of credentials. Again, the text is indicating, according to Radak, that the judge comes to the fore for the wrong reasons. In the realm of judgment and leadership, he possesses dubious qualifications. This again suggests a new trend that describes a decline in the caliber of Israel's leaders. It's mainly their wealth and perhaps yichus, but it's not anymore like what we had with Otniel ben Knaz and Devorah, sort of high spiritual qualifications.
He was also from Aver Hayarden.
The areas of Yair are in the areas that were captured by Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe. It's the same he takes over the same cities that the Yair, which was the grandson of Menashe, right? The great who was descendant of Machir. Those were the same cities that had been taken over by the Chatzi Shevet Menashe on the Aver Yarden.
So were they considered of a lower spiritual value?
Why you want to say because they lived Be'aver Yarden?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily so, but I would say the Radak is pointing out to us that the qualifications of these leaders are different than what they were before. We're seeing a general lowering of the qualifications of the leadership based on wealth, based on position, based on being a warrior, and not necessarily based on the other kinds of, we're going to see more importantly in this week's parak, further Yerida. It says, Vayamet Yair vayikaver b'kamon. Vayosifu b'nei Yisrael asot hara b'nei Hashem. And now the Jewish people descend even further. Vayavdu et ha'ba'alim ve'et ha'ashtarot. We know what Baal is. We know what the Ashtarot was. That was like a fertility rite. Then it says that Elohei Aram, that's 3. That Elohei Sidon, that's 4. That Elohei Moab, 5. That Elohei Bnei Ammon, 6. That Elohei Plishtim, 7. Vayazvu et Hashem v'lo avduhu. And they leave Hashem. Rashi says, Sheva avodot zarot nimnu kan. And says Rashi, Vayazvu et Hashem v'lo avduhu afilu b'shutafut imelu. That means originally, in an earlier period, when like the father of Gidon who worshipped Baal, they worshipped it along with Hashem. they did it b'shutafut, in partnership. Now, says Rashi, they are worshiping these idols without any kind of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Islam. There's a famous medrash, and it's brought in the Gemara Masechta Beitza. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, afilu keturmas hazeh, like a turnip, shesholchin oto sheva pamim, that they would soak it or boil it 7 times, v'ochlim oto b'kinuch sadeh lo asuni b'nim, and they would eat this like as a dessert vegetable. Even like this, my children have not worshipped me like that. And that's why it meant, and this medrash, of course, mentions this turmus that is cooked 7 times because of the mention of 7 avodah zaros in this pasuk. Achrei kol elo lo nachshapti beinayim. Mitzad hazeh, it's worse than a turmus. Carry turmus, even though it's a bitter fruit, they would cook it 7 times, you'd be able to eat it. But the Klal Yisrael doesn't even do that to me. And Odev Shalomar Mishum D'Lachri Yoshua Ad Otu Azman for Arvu Aliyam Zayin Shoftim. It's a remez that from Yoshua until now there's 7 judges. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like bemoaning the fact that so far the 7 judges have not been able to work on Klal Yisrael to get them, not to worship Avodah Zarah. Pasuk Zayin. Vayacharaf Hashem b'Yisrael, vayimkerem b'yad Plishtim u'v'yad Bnei Ammon. So now they're under the domination of Plishtim and Ammon. By the way, the only other people, just notice, that are called Bnei, it's Bnei Yisrael and Bnei Ammon, are always referred to as the sons of Ammon. It's just a comment. I don't see any significance to that, but we'll see throughout this parak they're going to be called the Bnei Ammon. Let's just remind ourselves that on the other side of the Yarden, so in the most southern part was Edom, and then higher up was Moab, and then higher up from Moab was Ammon. So, for example, the Sinan is where is Rabat Bnei Ammon. Now, above Ammon was the area of Sichon, Sichon Melech HaEmori, and above Sichon towards the Golan Heights is the Bashan, Og Melech HaBashan. So we need to keep that geography: Edom, Moab, Ammon, Sichon, and then Og. They were the nations that were living on the east side of the Yarden when Klal Yisrael came into Canaan. And now the Bnei Ammon are making trouble for Klal Yisrael. Vayiratzu Bnei Yisrael b'shana hi. Shmona Esrei shana et kol Bnei Yisrael shebei v'yarden b'eretz Samaria asher b'Gilad. So after Yair died, the Eretz Reuven v'Gad v'Chatzi Manasseh are dominated now by Ammon. And then Vayavru Bnei Ammon et Yarden, and then they crossed the Jordan, Li'ilachem Gam b'Yehuda u'Vinyamin u'Veit Ephraim, right, which is near Yerushalayim in the north of Yerushalayim. Vateitzer Yisrael mod, and it's great pains to Klal Yisrael. Now all of a sudden, Bnei Yisrael wake up. Vayizaku Bnei Yisrael Hashem le'mor chatanu lach v'chiazavnu et Eloheinu v'navod et ha'baalim. How could we leave you and worship the Baalim? And now Hashem says, Vayom Hashem of Bnei Yisrael. Radak says,
Ernie, who did he speak with?
Radak says, Al Yedei Navi.
Oh.
So Pinchas is still alive. Now the Radak doesn't say it was Pinchas, but it certainly could have been Pinchas or another Navi who's not mentioned. Then he says, let's count. Halom Mitzrayim, 1. Umin ha'emori, umin bnei Ammon, umin ha'plishtim, that's 4. Vitzidonim va'amalek uma'on. Lachatzu etchem, these 7 oppressed you. Vatitzaku elai, you cried to me, va'oshia etchem yadam. Rashi says, Shiva Chuos, Yesh Kan Kenega Sheva Avodot Zarot Shayu Ovdim. Hashem is saying, even you are worshiping 7 idols now, even though I have saved you in the previous periods from 7 different oppressors. Vatem azavtem oti, vatavdu Elokim acherim, lachein lo osif lo shiatchem. Hashem says, I'm not going to save you anymore. Hashem says, go and daven to the idols that you have chosen. Let them help you. No, we don't want them, we want you. And they put money where their mouth is. Vayasiru et Elohei nechar mikirbam. They got rid of the idols. Vayavdu et Hashem. Vatiktzar nafsho ba'amal Yisrael.
This never happened in all the hundreds of other years where they were doing avodah zarah to all the different avodah zarah. This is the first time that Hashem said to them, I'm not giving in to you anymore.
First time.
But why? So why? No reasoning, huh?
Well, but I think we're going to see that as we see Hashem's attitude towards us change, the various leaders that are being sprung up are also not of the same quality. So, Sydney, I think you make a good point. We're going to see it in action as well. Hashem is definitely having a different approach to us, and it's going to be reflected in the leaders that are given to us. Which is not going to be on the same caliber as we've had before. So I think the text fits. The fact that we're seeing this kind of change, we never heard this from Hashem. Yet, Klal Yisrael does tshuva. They daven, they are tzoek, and they remove the avodah zarah. Rashi says, "Vayitzaku ne'asfu al yedei kruz." Oh, that's them. I'm sorry. That's the next pasuk. Okay. Vayitzaku bnei Ammon. The bnei Ammon gathered their forces. Vayachanu b'Gilad. Remember, Gilad is the area of Manasseh on the other side, on the east side of the Jordan. Vayasfu bnei Yisrael vayachanu b'Mitzpah. Now, Mitzpah was a place that Klal Yisrael begins to gather. And this is going to be a place that is going to be used in the future as well. It used to be Gilgal, but now it's going to be the Mitzpah. And I think this is the first time we've seen them gather in the Mitzpah. Vayomru ha'am sarei Gilad ish el re'ehu. Now, the main battle, remember we said the Ammonites are in Gilad. That's where they're gathering. And the Chatzi Shevet Menashe, right, the Gilad people, they're under the most stress. So the leaders of Gilad say to each other, Mi ha'ish asher yachel yilachem b'vnei Ammon. Who can lead us in battle? He will be Yelarosh l'chol yoshvei Gilad. So they're looking for a leader. The computer doesn't make a difference. Okay. Perek Yud Aleph. The
Ernie-
Yiftach,
Ernie, when they originally came to Aver Hayarden, didn't they conquer the peoples who lived there?
they did, but they didn't wipe them out. So the Ammonites continued to live there. Just like in Canaan, the Jewish people are living in Eretz Canaan, but there's a lot of Gentiles around them. Similarly, Reuven, Gad, and Chatzi Shevet Menashe that's living on the east side, all of these nations, Moab, Ammon, are still there as well.
They didn't have a mitzvah to kill them, though.
Say that again?
They didn't have a mitzvah to kill those nations on the
Absolutely
side.
not. Ammon and Moab are cousins.
right.
Remember? They're the
Right.
children,
Well,
they're the
so-
children of Lot. And in fact, if you remember, we are told not to go to battle against them, right? When we try to enter, we're told not to fight them because they're our brothers or they're our relatives or whatever. Now, we're not allowed to remember they didn't give us food and drink. So there was no Akara Satov from Ammon and Moab because Avram Avinu saved Lot. So Ammon and Moab should have gone out to greet Klal Yisrael with Moshe when they came into Eretz Canaan with food and drink, but they didn't. So Chazal tell us, Lo yavo Amoni b'kal Hashem, v'lo yavo Moavi b'kal Hashem, because they were not koidem us v'lechem v'mayim. Now, Ruth was a Moabite, and
Well, yeah.
a Moaviyah. So the Gzeira was not on the females; it was only on the men. No, so I'm just going through. Sydney's pointing out that we did not have to kill them out. So that answers Ellen's question. Well, why were they there? Well, we had no mitzvah to kill them.
But they were originally they were under Jewish dominion.
No, what happened was, we'll see. Sichon, Melech HaEmori, they conquered Ammon and Moab. Sichon conquered Ammon and Moab. When we came, we're going to learn this tonight.
Okay.
Because Yiftach HaGiladi is going to have a whole dialogue with the king of Ammon. But so it's worthwhile remembering this because we're going to learn this tonight. That when Klal Yisrael in at the end of Sefer Bamidbar in Parshas Chukas, where it describes that they start coming into the areas of Moab and Ammon and Sichon. So Edom went out and met them with an army and didn't let them cross. Ammon and Moab, we were not supposed to attack. Sichon came out with his army and they went out in battle against us and we wiped them out. When we destroyed Sichon, we basically inherited Ammon and Moab. The rule was at that time, when you conquered somebody, you conquered everybody that they had conquered. So the lands of Ammon and Moab fell to Menashe and Reuven and Gad because of us conquering Sichon.
Okay.
But there were Goyim there because we didn't have to kill them. And again, it's only now, 300 years later, that all of a sudden the Ammonites are rising, the Bnei Ammon are causing problems for us. Okay, so the people of Gilad are looking for a leader. The Yiftach HaGiladi, Hayagi Bor Chayil, V'hu ben Isha Zonah. What an introduction. Vayoled Gilad et Yiftach. So who is Yiftach? So Yiftach's father was Gilad, but Gilad had a regular wife with Chuppah v'Kiddushin, and he had another wife. The Radak says Ben Pilegesh, Gilad Haya, that Yiftach was the daughter of a Pilegesh. Pilegesh is somebody. The Nikret Zona lefi she'ena imbaila b'ksuva v'kiddushin. She wasn't a Zona. She wasn't a harlot.
That's already cleaned up. That's already, they cleaned her up already.
Well, remember, we had the same issue with Rachav Zona.
Yeah, right.
Remember-
Okay.
You remember? We
Yes.
learned 4 pshat.
She married Yoshua afterwards.
But the question was, forget about afterwards. What was she? So we learned
There's too
one
many
pshat
of them,
was,
is what I'm trying to say.
She was
what
pretty.
one pshat we said zona from the word mazo.
Tamar was also a Zona, no?
Well, we're
Or
gonna,
suspected of being.
No,
Almost
she dressed as a Zona, but she wasn't a Zona.
But I mean, but it was typical. That's all I'm saying.
well, we said by Rachav, let's just say what the Mefarshim said. One said that it had to do with, she was an innkeeper from the word mazon.
Right,
And zona has nothing to do with the way we understand zona.
right, okay.
Now, there was a pshat that she was mamish a zona, and that all the great leaders came to visit her, and
Right.
that's why she knew everything about what was going on. So she
Rachav,
was a
right.
source of important information. That was another pshat. So here, as Sydney points out, the Meforshim are going to town. The Radak says Ben Pilegesh Gilad Haya, that this woman was a wife without ksuba v'kiddushin. V'hi kemo zona, afal pi shehi miyuchedes lo. Means even though this woman is attached to this man, it's like a zona because without a ksuba and a kiddushin, it's znus ba'alma. That's the Radak. Now,
That's
But-
why there was a movement in Borough Park to have Pilegish again. There was. It's in the Jewish press.
now the Ralbag says, "Shekvar haya ben isha shayta mishevet acher." It was a woman from a different shevet. Lefi shelo niset le'echad b'bnei hashevet, kara zona liosa nota mima sheroi lo linase le'echad mishpachta k'dei shelo tisov nachla mimatel matel. Remember,
It's
they
from a
didn't
foreign.
want women to marry out of their shevet because they would lose. They could potentially lose the nichse malug that she would inherit from the father, because a husband inherits his wife, and if there was only a daughter who inherited from her father, so if she came from Shevet Yehuda and there were no brothers, and she would inherit, so on her death, the husband would get those lands. So in general, people from a shevet married a woman from that shevet. So the Rabak says this woman is an Isha Zona. She's like a foreign woman because she came from a different shevet. And we'll see in a minute, the Vateled Eshet Gilad Lo Bonim. The problem was Gilad also had a regular wife with Ksuba V'Kiddushin and produced sons. Vayigdelu Bnei Aisha Vayigarshu et Yiftach. These sons chased away Yiftach. Vayomru lo lotin chal b'veit avinu. You're not going to have any share with us. Ben Isha acheret tata.
Also common that there was always a bunch of brothers. It's like Cinderella story always.
Well, we'll see. No, Sydney, I was waiting for you to say it.
No, because by David and Melech the same
Okay. That's what I wanted you to say.
thing. Right, there's others. I mean,
Well, the next story, we're going to see with the brothers is David. And we are going to see major connections between Yiftach and David.
hmm.
You've pointed out the first, because we're going to see these sons also chased Yiftach out of the house. And what happens? Vayivraf Yiftach libnei Echav, vayeshev be'eretz tov, vayitlaktu al Yiftach anashim reikim, vayetzi uno. Yiftach becomes a robber. He becomes a head of a band of thieves, of highway robbers, because he attracts to him anashim reikim, empty people. Now, who's empty? If you owed money and you couldn't pay, you were sold as an indentured servant. Well, the alternative was to run away. And so there were a lot of people like this who were out and about. Yiftach must have been a gifted leader. And he attracted a whole motley crew of these types around him. And they lived off the land, or worse, they became thieves and robbers. Okay, so here is what we're dealing with. Vayhi miyamim v'al chamu bnei Ammon Yisrael. Right, the psukim sort of get us back into context. Vayhi kasher nilchamu bnei Ammon Yisrael v'yalchu ziknei Gilad lakachat et Yiftach me'eretz tov. The people of Gilad, they know who Yiftach is. Now you notice when Yiftach was chased out of his house by his brothers, nobody stood up for him. Not the people of Gilad. They didn't say boo. But now they hear that Yiftach is a gifted leader and they want to get Yiftach. Vayomru Yiftach lecha vayita lanu lekatzin. We need you as our general. V'nilchama b'vnei Ammon. We want you to lead us. So first of all, the Chazal picked up very much on the concept of Vayilaktu el Yiftach anashim reikim. This is in Baba Kama. Davar zeh kosuv b'Torah. Dichsiv vayelech Esav el Yishmael. Bad goes to bad. Where does Esav go? He goes to his brother. He goes to his uncle Yishmael, right, to get a wife. Then it says Shanui banavim. Dichsiv vayilaktu el Yiftach anashim reikim vayitzu imo. Umishulash baktuvim, it says in Ben Sira, Kol of limino yishkol uvnei adam l'domelo. People will live next to people that are similar to you. It's not b'masnisim kol ha'mechuber l'tamei tamei. Whoever connects himself to a tamei person becomes tamei. Kol ha'mechuber l'tor tor. Rabbi Yezer Omer lo lechinam halach zarzil eitzel orev ela b'nei shehu mino. One bird flocks to another bird because, the birds of a feather flock together. That's basically what Chazal are learning here. And the Musar Nevi'im says, so we have to get to the question, why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu manipulating and orchestrating things so that the leadership now is falling on this bum? This is a great generation. They had so much sorrow that they became Bal Tshuva, but not out of any love of Hashem. This return to tshuva doesn't really come from a holy place. Lachein hahatzalai tagamkein mimakor bazeh. That's why the leader that you're getting is the same kind of leader. Yesh bazeh, he says, mishum mida keneged mida. Back to the psukim. Vayomer Yiftach liziknei Gilad. Halo atem sneitem oti. Why should I come and help you? You have hated me. You didn't say boo when my brothers drove me out. Now because you're having difficulties, you're coming to me? You should still, we want you to return with us. We want you to be our leader. Vayomer Yiftach el ziknei Gilad imishivim atem oti lilachem b'vnei Ammon v'natan Hashem otam lefanai anochi eyeh lachem lerosh. He sort of makes a deal with them. I will become. You have to appoint me your leader, and especially if Hashem puts them into my hands. Vayomru ziknei Gilad Yiftach Hashem, they take an oath. Yesh shomea beinosenu im lo kidvarcha kein naseh. We will do it. Vayelech Yiftach im ziknei Gilad, vayasimu amoto aleihem l'rosh l'katzin, vayidaber Yiftach et kol dvarav l'fnei Hashem b'mitzpah.
So was he a Choser B'tshuva when he became the leader?
Choser b'tshuva, I mean,
That he davens to Hashem, he asks for Hashem's help.
yeah. I mean, he's using the right words. He says, "V'natan Hashem otam lefanai." We're going to see. There's a famous Chazal, Yiftach b'doro k'Shmuel b'doro. Each generation gets the leader that it deserves, and he is the leader. So he certainly is not a highway robber anymore, if that's what you mean. And we see that Hashem is going to help him.
Does he rise to the occasion? Is sort of what I'm asking.
We'll see. I mean,
Okay.
Chazal are constantly ambivalent about Yiftach. But the Gemara in the Sifri says, Rab Shimon ben Menashe oimer vatochal b'ktzei machaneh b'muktzim shebahem, b'gdolim shebahem. A katzin refers to a leader.
Isn't that like an officer in the army?
Yes, like an officer in katzin is an officer, like a general.
When we finish this, it says that this is the Haftarah of Chukas. I'm sure you'll explain to us why.
Yes, we'll see very shortly.
Okay.
By the way, Yiftach, the mitzvah is where Yiftach's house was. Vayishlach, okay. Vayelech Yiftachem ziknei Gilad v'asimu amato aleim rosh katzim v'ber Yiftach kol v'rav v'nei Hashem mitzpah. Rashi says et kol dvarav hatznai shebeineim. He wants to let the people know the deal he made with the leaders of Gilad, that I'm going to be your head if by taking on this job. And Rashi says, because lamakom shenesfu kulam, shashchina shara al rov tzibur. If the rov of the tzibur of Klal Yisrael is there, so the Shechina is there. So that's why lifnei Hashem. And that's what Rashi is referring to as why it's considered lifnei Hashem. Pasuk Yud Beis. Vayiflach Yiftach Malachim El Melech Bnei Ammon Lemor. Yiftach starts off talking peace. Mali Valach. What do you and I have to do? Kivata Elai Lachem Bartzi. We need to talk peace. In fact, the Sifri says, Godel HaSholom, Shafilu b'shas melchama tzrichim shalom. Even though there's war, you got to start off trying to get peace. Like it says, Vayishlach Yiftach Malachim, El Melech Bnei Ammon Lemor, Va'ata Ashiva Eten b'shalom. So even when you're making plans for war, you should always try to first make peace. Vayomer Melech Bnei Ammon and Malachei Yiftach. The Malachei Yiftach are the messengers that Yiftach sends. You know what? Ki lakach Yisrael et artzi. You know, the Jewish people, when they came with Moshe Rabbeinu, they took our land. Balotom Mitzrayim. Me Arnon, Vada Yabok, Vada Yarden. Like we remember I said, that I want to go through this carefully.
It has eerie similarities, parallels to Yaakov and Esav's story.
So let's just do the following. Let's say the following. First of all, the eastern side of the Jordan River, from its headwaters north of the Sea of Galilee until the southern tip of the Dead Sea, is naturally divided up by its tributaries into a number of discrete regions. Midway along the eastern shore of the Dead Sea is a narrow gorge carved by the Arnon River. The Arnon is a perennial stream. It rises in the Syro-Arabian desert, flows westward 50 kilometers. It drops 900 meters in elevation before emptying in the Dead Sea. The Arnon stream formed a natural boundary between the kingdom of Moab to the south and Ammon to the north. Now remember, the Israelite tribes of Reuben and Gad took over in that region north of the Arnon stream. Now, between Kinneret and the Dead Sea is the Yabok. The Yabok is the northern border of Ammon. So between the Yabok and the Arnon is where Ammon was. And the Emori were divided up by the Yarmouk River that emptied into the Jordan south of the Sea of Galilee. And that was the natural boundary between the region of the Gilad to the south and the Bashan to the north. So there are four main tributaries and four kingdoms listed from south to north. We said Edom is in the south, Moab, then Ammon, and then Emori. And they're divided by the Nachal Zered. We said the Arnon, the Yabok, and the Yarmouk. It's very interesting. I'm reading from Rabbi Hatton. There was a great south-north highway that began at Eilat and continued all the way to Damascus. We're talking about 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 years ago. This is the trade route that people talk about. There were caravan routes going north and south, but they were crisscrossed by caravan routes going westward towards Egypt. That's how Yosef was sold there. And it went all the way eastwards toward Mesopotamia. It's called the King's Highway, or the Derech HaMelech Nelech, when Moshe Rabbeinu uses that. It's referring to this north-south highway that was traveled in at that time. The ancient Rabat Bnei Ammon is on the site of Amman, the capital of present-day Jordan. Okay, so the Melech Ammon says, Kilakach Yisrael Tartzi Ba'alto Mitzrayim Me'arnon V'arei Yabok V'arei Yarden. We said Ammon lived between the Arnon and the Yabok. He says, Va'ata Shiva Ten B'Shalom. The king of Ammon says to Yiftach, just give it back to us, and we won't fight you. Vayosef od Yiftach vayishlach malachim emelech ne'amon. Vayomer lo ko amar Yiftach, lo lakach Yisrael et eretz Moab et eretz ne'amon. He says, you've got it all wrong. We never took your country, and we never took Moab. Ki balotam mitzrayim, vayelech Yisrael bamidbar ad Yamsuf vayavo Kadesha. He's reviewing history. We went through the Yam Suf, we came to Kadesh. It's when we came to Kadesh, Vayishlach Yisrael Malachim, El Melech Edom Lemor. Kadesh is in the south. As we come around Eilat, the Jewish people come around Eilat, you're going to hit Edom, Moab, Ammon, and the Amori. That's how we're going to do it. So the first place Moshe Rabbeinu went is to Edom. And he said, Ebrana be'artzecha. So Ellen, you asked, why is this the Haftorah of Parshas Chukas? Because in Parshas Chukas are all of these parshios. where Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael come to Edom and come to Ammon and come to Moab and come to Sichon. So it's a very natural parak. V'lo shama Melech Edom. Melech Edom did not listen. They went out likratenu with a big army, and for some reason we didn't do battle with them. Maybe because the battle, I think Chazal say, is Valu Moshim Bahar Tzion Lirot et Har Esav. Later on, the battle against Edom and Seir and Esav is for the future. That's why we didn't battle them then. V'gam el Melech Moab Shalach v'lo ava. Vayeshev Yisrael b'Kadesh. We sent the same message to Moab, and Moab said, nothing doing, you're not coming through our land. But we were told not to do battle with them. Vayelech b'midbar vayasav et eretz Edom et eretz Moab. So we went around. We went east of Edom and east of Moab into Iraq, maybe. I don't know how deep Jordan is, but we went all the way around so that we didn't penetrate their neighborhood. Vayavomim Mizrach Shemesh le'eretz Moab, vayachanun me'ever Yarnon v'lo ba'u b'gvul Moab ki Arnon gvul Moab. We did not cross the Arnon, which we said was the barrier to Moab. Now we're above the Arnon, which we said belonged to Sichon. Vayishlach Yisrael malachim el Sichon melech ha'amorim melech Heshbon. Vayomer lo Yisrael nabrana be'artzecha ad mekomi. Let us traverse your land so we can get into Eretz Canaan. They are sort of between the Kinneret and Yericho, right? Above the Kinneret is the Bashan. That belonged to Og. Just to position so you know where we are. We're in Jordan. Like those of you who ever driven from Yerushalayim to the Galil called Derech Harava, right? Have you done, right? When you drive, you see the Jordan River and you drive north. Instead of going on the highways, towards Tel Aviv, you go through Yericho, right? And then you make a left and you go north. Who's done that drive?
I've done that a number of times.
Exactly.
But they don't go there so much anymore. The Christians go there for the baptism, but the Jews take the highway because it's
Exactly. But Sydney,
it's along the Jordanian border the whole time.
But Derech Harava was the main way we used to go.
Right.
And by the way, on the Israeli side, beautiful kibbutzim, all agricultural. And you used to look on the other side and there was nothing there. Now, it's interesting. Since the peace treaty with Hussein, Susie and I had the opportunity not long ago to go up to the Golan, Derech Harava. You would be shocked at what's going on in the Jordan. The Jordanians copied everything that the Jews did on their side. There are beautiful agricultural settlements now on the east side of the Jordan, mirroring and paralleling what the Jews did on the west side of the Jordan. And so anyways, we're talking about the east side of the Jordan that you can see when you drive from Yericho up. That's the land of Sichon, maybe a little further north. So we ask from Sichon, Nebrana be'artzecha ad mekomi. V'lo ha'amin Sichon et Yisrael avor b'gvulo. He didn't allow us to do that. Vayasof Sichon et kolamo vayachanu b'yatza. Sichon gathered his crew in Yatza. Vayilochem im Yisrael. Vayiten Hashem Elohei Yisrael et Sichon v'kolamo b'yad Yisrael vayakum. Vayirash Yisrael et kol eretz ha'amori yoshev ha'aretz ha'i. So by beating Sichon, we inherit the Amori. And then the pasuk says, "Vayushu et kol gvul Amori me'arnon v'arei abokim me'midbar v'arei Yarden." Now, Sichon had conquered Moab and Ammon. So now we basically came into possession through the capture of Sichon, the lands of Ammon and Moab. Vayushu et kol gvul Amori me'arnon v'arei abokim me'midbar v'arei Yarden. Ve'ata Hashem Elokei Yisrael horisha te'amorim et ne'amo Yisrael ve'ata tirashenu Hello, Eit Asher Yorishcha Kimosh Lecho Totirash. That which Sichon inherited, we inherited. Vet Kol Asher Hashem Orish Hashem Lokeinu Paneinu Otoni Rash. And then Hashem gave it to us. So we didn't. We are in our rights that we have this land, Ammon and Moab. Ve'ata tov tova tami Balak ben Sipor melech Moab. Are you better than Balak ben Sipor arov ravim Yisrael im nilcham bam? Did he do battle with us? If he had a problem, why didn't he do battle with us? So just like we inherited him, we inherited you. The Radak says, "Hamilchama ita sheshalach lebilam lekalel otam, v'nei hu lo nilcha b'Yisrael bavor artzo." He didn't do battle for his land. V'gam malchei Moab achreichen lo nilchamu b'Yisrael b'zuatana. Shlosh me'ot shana sha'aretz b'yad Yisrael. We're going to see in a minute. The pasuk is going to say it's 300 years since then, and the kings of Moab, the kings of Ammon have been silent. All of a sudden, you wake up and you want your land. B'shevet Yisrael b'cheshbonu v'ivnoteha, we've been living in Cheshbon. Uva'ar or uvivnoteha v'chol ha'arim asher yardei arnon 300 shana. Now, this pasuk is one of the most important psukim in all of Sefer Shoftim. Why? It just said that it dated where we are with Yiftach until Moshe Rabbeinu is 300 years. Umadua lo yitzaltem ba'etahi. And you've had 300 years to complain. Where have you been? Says Yiftach, Anochi lo chatati lach. I've done nothing to you. Ve'ata oseh iti ra'al lachem. And you are the one who are doing bad by battling us. Yishpot Hashem hashofet hayom bein bnei Yisrael vein bnei Ammon. V'lo shama melech bnei Ammon el divrei Yiftach asher shalach elav. I just want to read the Rashi of Shlosh Meot Shana Pasuk Chavav. Mishikavshu et haaretz b'mei Yoshua ad Yiftach is Shlosh Meot Shana. Mikan yesh lilmod shnot hashoftim hanizkarim ad eina. All the Meforshim, all the Rishonim, all the historians, this is an important pasuk in Sefer Shoftim because it delineates for us the exact number of years. There's a lot of debate, even with this Rashi, how to calculate this all up. But let's read the Rashi. Rashi says it's unclear whether the years of Shibud that we were subjected to are included in the years of the Shofet. That, because remember, like we said tonight, Tola ruled for 23 years and Yair ruled for 22 years. Well, what about the 18 years that they were subjugated? So Rashi is going to say, Shaninu b'Seder Olam. There is a Tanaitic piece of literature called Seder Olam that goes through historical issues. He says, Yoshua Parnes es Yisrael Esrim U'Shmona Shana. Yoshua ruled for 28 years. Ve'en li mikra mimi lilmod. And there's no pasuk that really tells us that. Atniel Arba'im Shana. That Rashi gives us a pasuk. He says, go look in Shoftim, Perek Gimel. Now, Ushnei Shibud Shel Kushan Mishatayim Bichlalam. He says the years of the subjugation of Kushan Mishatayim is within the 40 years. Achrav Ehud Shmonim Shana. Then Ehud ben Gera was 80 years. And he gives you the pasuk. Perek Gimel, pasuk Lamed. Then Shmone Esrei Shana, 18 years, Shibud Shel Eglon B'Socham, is within the 80 years. So Rashi says, so we're up to 148 years. Devora Arboim Shana. But it doesn't do anything. Okay, you just can't see them, but we can see, they can see us. Devora 40 years. Ushnei Shibud Yavin B'Tocham. Harei Mea Shmonim Ushmor 188 years. Achrav Sheva Shanim Shel Shibud Midyan, V'Arba'im Shel Gidon, V'Sholosh Shel Avimelech, Harei Mosayim Shloshim Ushmona Shana, 238 years. Achrav Esrim Shalosh Shel Tola, V'Esrim Ushtaim Shel Yair, Ela she'alta shana achat lishnehem. 1 year is sort of, it overlaps them. Ushmona asar shel bnei Ammon ad shelo bayiftach harei 300 shana. It's a great Rashi. It's a great Rashi. Okay. So we're going to leave tonight, like the perils of Pauline, on a cliffhanger. Yiftach doesn't accept Ammon, and Yiftach is about to make a very famous vow. He's going to make a famous vow about his daughter. Isn't there a novel, Jephthah's daughter? Okay, so we're going to spend a fair amount of time next week.
Don't make it homework. Ernie.
Say it again?
Don't make it homework that we have to read the novel before. I
No.
think the wives have all read it anyhow.
Okay,
Long time
I have
ago.
not read it, but there is a lot in our literature, that is, both in the literature of Chazal and the literature of the Rishonim, they are in opposite understanding of what happened with Yiftach's daughter. It's one of the few places where when I say the Rishonim, I mean the Radak, Rashi, the medieval commentaries seem to take a different approach to what Chazal of the Gemara understood what happened with Yiftach's daughter. So I think it'll make for very interesting limud next week. And I think this week we have gotten up to that spot. Any questions or comments about what we learned tonight?
I can't help but see the parallel between what the people of Ammon said to Yiftach. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
And what the Palestinians of today are saying to the Jews. We've been in this land for hundreds of years, where suddenly you come in and say, this is your land. So see, it's interesting to just see the parallel thought process.
Okay.
Comment.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you.
Shkoyach, Ernie, Susie.
I think we have a lot to think about, Bernie.